What's going on, people? Welcome to this episode of Movies About Money. This is a new show from By the Hood where we discuss movies and everything pop culture that has to do about money and break it down and give a full analysis. My name is Jimmy. As always, I got my partner Corey in the building. Corey, you good, man? I know you out in Texas somewhere, man. You staying safe?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm on this janky ass internet, so if y'all see me in and out, it ain't because of me.
That's what she said. Yo, with that being said, man, I want to introduce our panelists tonight, man. We got some special gentlemen, man. First off, we got my brother Dev from War Room Sports, and anybody who knows me know that I also co-founder of War Room Sports with Dev. So in War Room Sports, he talks everything sports, pop culture, movies, what have you. So I know he has some thoughts on this movie we're getting ready to talk about. Because he's also an Eddie Murphy stan. I just want to put that out there before he gives his stories. Also at the round table, man, we got my brother Akil Parker from All This Math. This guy is a professor, a community activist, and also I made a new title for you, Akil. You're a math activist, right?
Yeah,
because you preach the importance of math in our community, right? So that's the new title for you, math activist, right?
I'm trying to market mathematics to the Black community, like directly marketing it, not anything like secondary or indirect. I want it to be direct to the Black community.
And how old are the students that you tutor or help out? Like, what's the age ranges?
It ranges. I mean, it goes from I've tutored students as young as kindergarten age up through post-secondary, and elder.
Oh wow, okay.
That I've taught and tutored to try to get their GEDs and things like that.
Oh, that's dope. Okay, so it ranges. You can go all over the spectrum. That's what's up, man. Shout out to everybody watching on Facebook as well as YouTube. If you have any commentary as we go through this, make sure. Leave your comments. We'll bring them up and talk about them. But this is about Trading Places. This is a classic movie, Eddie Murphy's classic. But excuse me, I gotta say before we start, like this is literally my single favorite movie of all time because I think it has a lot of elements. Social commentary, drama is hilarious. It's still funny, right? So to this day, it's still funny. They're talking about money, which is my thing. They're in Philadelphia, so it has like pretty much all the elements of something that I would like. So it's my single favorite movie. So this is something that I've been looking forward to, is to analyze this movie and break it down. Because when you watch some of these movies now, as an adult and someone who's well read and in studies, money as well as culture, you actually realize things about these movies that you may not have in the past when you first saw them. So first thing I want to start with is, gentlemen, how many of you watched it recently?
I just watched it the other night.
Okay, Corey, you did too. How about you, Doug?
I probably watch Trading Places 4 or 5 times a year. So
it's always I know people consider it the best Christmas movie ever. Which is funny to me too. But here's my thing: when the most recent you got, I'm gonna start with you, Corey. What is your biggest takeaway from the most recent watch you got? That's something that you didn't recognize before and you watch now and you say, oh, that's interesting.
My takeaway from the movie, I'm sorry, like you in and out a little bit.
Okay, that's what she said. No, I was saying, what is your biggest takeaway rewatching it now as opposed to when you may have watched it in the past?
Oh, I mean, it's crazy because like before, I just thought it was funny, and then now, parts of it ain't funny no more. So it changed up on me. Like
give me an example.
A lot more serious.
Give me one example.
And you want an example of something that was funny before?
Just one example of something that's not there. It's not funny. Exactly.
So when they was chasing him around in the Heritage Club. Which, I noticed the name of the building is the Heritage Club too, it's all white in there. But when they was chasing him around in the Heritage Club.
Oh. All right, so that's Corey. I'm gonna go to you, Kill. Kill, how about you? Give me something that you may not have saw earlier when you watched it, but you recognize now, and it gives you a whole different perspective. This can be one thing we can start with.
So I think it's really relevant to what is going on right now politically and in the streets right now, because so I see what's going on right now as like something that Malcolm X said, back in the day during the Ballot or the Bullet speech, when he was talking about, the white people, whether they be conservative or liberal, they're using us as a political football, right? Trying to get, certain legislation passed and whatnot. And it's really meant to benefit them. And that's kind of what I see going on today as well. Like when we look at like the response to the George Floyd murder and a lot of the other murders that have built up to, what has been going on with the protesting and the rioting and whatnot, it's really a large part of this is a battle between white liberals and white conservatives over who's going to control us. So then I'm looking at Trading Places and I'm like, okay, this is like back in '84. And that wasn't the first time that this had happened, because this was going on back in the 19th century and 18th century. As long as this country has been in existence, even when it was just colonies, they're trying to decide, okay, what are we going to do with the Negro question that, even the historians always talk about. So you got Randolph Duke and Mortimer Duke. Mm-hmm. One of them, because they, in the beginning, when they're like talking about, what is it? Randolph was, Don Amici was Mortimer, right? Don Amici is Mortimer, I think. Yeah, I got it written down. Yeah. So you got, so Randolph was on the side of like, they're doing this nature versus nurture argument, talking about, that, any person when given certain opportunities or whatnot, they'll end up a certain way. But then the other is like, good genes. And then the good genes, we get to the good genes conversation. We think we got to start thinking about now, like, Harriet Washington, medical apartheid, and all this, different experimentation and this ideas, all these ideas that justify chattel slavery in the first place, that these ideas that, well, their brains are smaller, they're not human, they're like a different race of species or whatever in reference to us. So I kind of was looking at that as like a parallel, like, okay, this is current events. Like this whole argument about, like the experimentation on Black people, social experimentation on Black people, that being done on, Billy Ray Valentine, Eddie Murphy, is one thing. And then even like something that John Henrik Clarke said, out of the many things he said that kind of stuck with me, is like, when we study history, when we look at people that oppress us, we got to first look at like how they treat their own people, like how they treat their own children, their own parents, their own, grandchildren and whatnot. So if you look at how they treat their own people, because Coleman and Eddie Murphy said it in that scene, he was like, when they took him back to the crib, he was like, oh, so you're going to give me my own slave, my own white slave right here. Mm-hmm. So Eddie Murphy kind of peeped like, okay, Coleman was supposed to be a butler, but he really was a slave for real. And even like the other, in connection to that, the other white guy, when Winthorpe walked into Duke and Duke early in the movie, it was the old head white guy that was there to like take his coat. And then I think the guy's name was like,
he didn't even look him in the eyes.
Yeah,
he didn't even look him in the eyes. Yeah, I was like, yo, how douchey can you be?
That's supposed to be your people. That's supposed to be your elder. You know what I mean? But you don't respect him because he's just the guy that's there to take your coat. You know what I mean? Because you're the managing partner for Duke and Duke. You know what I'm saying? So those are just things. Like, it was real relevant to, I think, what's going on today with this kind of like civil war, this political civil war that's been ongoing between white liberals and white conservatives over like the Negro question, which is still going on. Like, what are they going to do with us?
Yeah, interesting, man. That's interesting. I was waiting to hear you speak on that. I know you're going to take a deep dive with that one. And that was interesting. So, Dev, how about you? Any thoughts you're watching it now as opposed to maybe when you watched it as a kid about the movie?
Definitely as a kid, I was just watching it mostly for the comedic value. Kid, you made some great points, even some stuff I'm like, damn, I just now noticing that as well. When you talk about things that's relative to today, we talk a lot about the word privilege. Mm-hmm. And, the way they flipped it, if you want to take something positive out of it as a Black dude, it's kind of like, all right, this is kind of showing you, if we're given the same privilege, if we're given the same opportunities, we can be just as successful as our white counterparts. Even though, like I said, it was done in a comedic way and Eddie Murphy didn't really know too much about what he was getting into, it still kind of showed you theme-wise that, given the same opportunities, we can make the same kind of success of ourselves. So that was the biggest thing that I took away from it.
And that's a great point. And also you see the parallel between what they were doing in terms of the finance game in the street. You guys are a bunch of bookies, right? So it's like he related that. Yeah. And also the one thing about privilege, I want to bring this up in the conversation, which I found interesting, is and it depends upon how you look at it. I was going to say how fast he kind of assimilated, because it also goes to the idea of ownership, right? So people always talk about how when you own things, you treat them a little bit different. It took him all of like one day when they gave him his house, right? and people were partying in his house for him to like, yo, this is my stuff. Like, get off this. Like, you saw a complete shift.
On my floor.
Yeah. You saw the complete shift. He's like, hold up, this is mine. So you see the difference in his approach as someone who looked at it as being his property, as before he was Billy Ray Valentine on the street begging for money. And it didn't take long at all. Like, it literally didn't take long at all for that switch to happen.
So if I could hinge off of that, because I started thinking about that concept too, of like, so Billy Ray Valentine and I, as a character, he didn't have they in terms of the movie, in terms of character development, like he didn't have like no friends. It wasn't like he had friends, like he was from down north and he had friends from North Philly that he ran with, or he had friends from South Philly that he ran with, or uptown or whatever. He's an roundaway brother from Philly, and he's a hustler. He's trying to make ends meet any way he can. But then I thought about like how that party scene, how it showed how he was being. This is like Woodson talks about this in the Miseducation of the Negro. It showed how like he was him given that position and given that status and that those credentials and given that job, he was kind of alienated from the black community, because that's how they represented the black community by all the brothers and the sisters that was, even if they was like pimps and prostitutes, some of them that was in the bar when he ran up in the bar. And the bartender was like, "You got a lot of nerve showing your face around here." He was like, "Man, I got you a measly funky $27." Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, but that kind of showed that. And then when you jump all the way to the end, then it's like, I think that is an issue that we have to confront and have some more serious conversations about, especially with the youth. Because at the end, he's laid up on the beach with Winthorpe. And then it's like, Winthorpe is supposed to be his man. So it's like, oh, I'm rich now. And I mean, I don't know what would have happened, but it kind of made us feel like, oh, Eddie Murphy, Billy Ray Valentine, I'm not really Billy Ray Valentine no more. Now I'm this rich brother. I made a whole bunch of money in commodities. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm out here now.
The bourgeoisie, bro.
Yeah, all of y'all that are still broke back in Philly, whether it's down north or South Philly or wherever, like y'all on your own. You know what I mean? And then it also made it interesting how, like, so Winthorpe was like, he woke up in the bed after he tried to, take all the pills. He wakes up in the bed and he was like, "Oh, Coleman, I had this awful dream. And it was all because of this awful I was poor and no one liked me. And it was all because of this awful Negro." So it's like, oh, so y'all cool now? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so Winthorpe went from being just as racist, just as white supremacist, just as elitist, just as like anti-black as the Duke brothers was, because they were his old heads. Mm-hmm. They helped to, develop him. And now it's like, it just flips. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, we need to be cool. So I guess like it was strategic because Eddie Murphy was trying to work with him to like get the Duke brothers back. But then it kind of seemed like, I thought about it, I guess, and I understand it, it's fiction. But I guess in real life, I think we find ourselves in a lot of situations where, again, back to what's going on today with this whole concept of allies. Like, was Winthorpe really his ally? Right. You know what I mean? Because Winthorpe is the same bull. I mean, Winthorpe, he lost his job. He had 150 grand in the bank right at in front of the clothespin, whatever bank that was. Like, he lost his friends who really wasn't friends for real. Because then it's like, damn, like, y'all just they said I was selling drugs. You knew me all this time. You had no type of indication that I was out here selling drugs. And somebody gonna say this about me, and you just gonna take it? Like, you're gonna take it as true? Like, y'all really my people?
Yeah. They tried to take his girl and all that.
Yeah.
He had to walk a mile in his shoes. He had to be treated like one of those, you know what I'm saying, before he realized, okay, then maybe I should be an ally. I mean, but like you said, I mean, most of that was just him trying to get his fortune back. Like, at the same time, when you're looking at it from the fictional concept, that's probably what the message was. Like, I had to walk a mile in his shoes. Now I know how, people like Billy Ray Valentine are treated. So now I have to change.
So now we talking about classism, right? We're talking about classism. It's like, maybe it gave him a different perspective, but I'm still playing, and I get your point too, Kill. It's like, I'm still like keeping you standoffish. Like, okay, you walked a mile in my shoes, but like, are you like, and we have a comment. Shout out to let me see.
Okay.
Sure. Let me see. We got a comment right here. Simeon, let me see. Pull Simeon's comment up.
Conditional ally.
Simeon says conditional ally, right? Yeah. So, that's true. That's true. And Corey, who fell off with us, but he's with Facebook. He got a comment I want to put up here real quick.
Yeah.
So that was playing off the whole idea of nature versus nurture. Okay, got you. But for me, I'm still like, I still gotta watch out for you. Like, what you mean? What you mean? Like, you might now we're going to travel over here to St. Croix. All right. So, and that's where they were, by the way. I did a little research on this. Also, back to the whole idea of the bank. Just to give you an idea of what kind of money they were talking about. This is in 84 was the movie.
Oh,
so 83, 84 around that time.
I did
Yeah.
So, a couple things too.
Yeah, so the 150K is little over $386,000 in today's money. So that's what kind of bread he had in the bank. Also, when they told him we're going to start you with a salary of 80K, that's the equivalent of someone starting you with a salary of 205K in today's numbers, a little over 205K. So you see what it costs for him to if you want to say he assimilated. I know that's a point that someone want to argue, but because he turned real fast. Like he became everything about him. The way he was sitting, his walk, everything changed within a couple minutes.
And you remember the scene? So he switched his values too, because then he became more conservative. And I think that does happen to some of us. Remember Winthorpe comes in, pulls out the gun, and he's trying to frame Billy Ray Valentine. Was like, he's a cocaine grinder, Quaaludes. He's got all this, and then so then the Duke brothers are like, but they're rationalizing. They're saying like, so again, that's the whole double standard thing. The white man fell from grace, and now they're sympathetic to the experience of Winthorpe because now he lost his job, he lost his friends. Eddie Murphy's like, but he's got money to buy drugs. Right? Can't be soft on people.
Yeah. When I saw that part, I was like, I know Kill will say something about this because he definitely got mad conservative. He got mad conservative.
He took the joint and stuck it in his pocket. He ain't throw that away though. He took the joint, put it in his pocket. So
that's true. You still had a little bit. A little bit left. A little bit of his natural self left. So that part was actually very interesting to me. Just how to me that was the biggest that I took from this is the shift in both parties, and I guess that's the point of the movie, the nature versus nurture thing. But it is very relevant to what's going on today, right? So just to dig a little deeper, and I've talked to you guys about this in the past. One thing that bothers me ungodly is, what we call the bourgeoisie Negro, right? Mm-hmm. And just in my personal experience in dealing with people, I've seen people who've had parents that make sacrifices to help them get in a certain position through education, and they like thumb their nose up at their own parents. So when you see people that have the ability to thumb their nose up at their own parents, what do you think the average person does? And shout out to all my HBCUs, right? So I'm a Lincoln guy. I know Dev's a Howard guy. Kill, you went to HBCU too, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm a Morgan and a Lincoln guy. So
Morgan,
undergrad at
Morgan guy.
I did a master's at Lincoln. So yeah.
Okay, so we got Morgan, Lincoln, and Howard in the bill, all HBCU. But one thing I will say about
Howard. One of my sisters went to Howard, by the way.
No word.
Okay, cool. So we all HBCU repped out, right? So my point I'm making with this is there's a lot of you Negroes, and Negroes, as they say in the movie. A lot of you HBCU Negroes are the ones I'm talking to, and I think that's problematic, right? Because y'all are a lot of the ones that are the bourgeoisie that thumb your nose up, which to me, when we talk about in the grand scheme of things, right? So the By the Hood platform is about like building wealth, but for a community perspective. And one of the things that gets in our way are like a lot of people within this space don't think about community. They get their Billy Ray Valentine on. They get it, start making a couple of dollars, and next thing you know is like, you should have stood on his neck. He shouldn't have broke the law. Some of them Negroes. So to me, that's how this thing whole made me think. Maybe that's why I took it that way. Watching like, man, he assimilated pretty fast. But again, because it's Eddie Murphy, I'm trying to make excuses for him. But that is my major takeaway from this flick.
That is a problem. That is a problem too in the culture and a lot of the HBCU experience. And I can put myself out there. I throw myself on the sword, because I just turned 40, last month, but I first went to college at the age of 17, and I didn't matriculate through. I matriculated through Morgan State after transferring, but I spent my freshman year at Morehouse College. And I would even argue that in retrospect, Morehouse was an HBCU, and I wanted to go there for various reasons. But one of the reasons really was, and I think a lot of people, I don't know if they're introspective and they're honest with themselves, a lot of us pick certain HBCUs because of white validation. So it's like we want the HBCU experience, and we want to feel like, okay, well, I'm black because I'm going to the HBCU. But even if you think about some of the conversations that we have in terms of like the inter-HBCU battling and beefing, it's like my school is better than yours. And we may not explicitly say it, but we'll say, well, my school is better than yours because the white people fuck with us. Because the white populations, they fuck with certain HBCUs more than others. So if that's really the reason, then it's not really about. It's kind of like you want to be chosen, you know, by the slaveholder. And it's like, or you know, my slave master is better than yours. It's like that whole type of thing.
Kind of hedging the situation.
They're not going to that space, and I was part of that crowd, so that's why I get it. I get it firsthand.
He's speaking from experience.
That's the self-criticism.
I just want to shout out Empire real quick. She said that's true. We talk about the HBCU. That's true.
I can't shout out.
You know what's crazy about that?
I went there.
I'm gonna tell you what's crazy about that, right? You know, because they accepted you. Most of my closest friends are HBCU people, right? And I see it all the time, just in conversations. The whole Howard versus Hampton, or even me and Lincoln. I see the whole Lincoln versus Cheney thing, but the way they talk about each other is exactly what you said. That's why it's funny to me. And you know, Morehouse guys, you don't even want to talk about Morehouse guys. They on par with, like, you talk to someone that went to Harvard. You just can't tell them nothing. Like,
I mean, it's different if you go there. You know, you have the type of political understanding or political and cultural grounding where you're really trying to, like, nation build and try to get us out of the mess that we're in as a people and as a collective. That's one thing. Like, I remember, like, you know, studying Kwame Ture, and when he was still Stokely Carmichael, and when he went to Howard, coming out of the Bronx, out of Bronx Science, and he got down with he was cool with Cleveland Sellers, you know, whose son is Bakari Sellers, which I'm kind of disappointed in considering who his pop was. But even they had the same complaints back in the 60s. He's like,
hey, he's a great example, though. He's a great example. Right? So he's Billy Ray Valentine after the change.
These brothers, Bakari Sellers, exactly. So these brothers, Kwame Ture and Cleveland Sellers, are like, yo, you know, we're trying to get down with SNCC. We're trying to, you know, down with the civil rights movement. We're trying to, you know, be involved with racial uplift. But, you know, it's people on campus that, you know, they just worried about their cars, messing with the girls, you know, trying to, you know, get their degree and get to the bag. And that's it. And that's an experience for, you know, a lot of us, you know, in the HBCU still to this day. But I still think those spaces definitely had a potential to, you know, help us to win.
Oh, man, they're needed.
Definitely.
I'm still all HBCU because that experience is second to none. And just the people you meet. But I think it's a unique experience, too. I was having this conversation with someone the other day on a different platform about how when you go there, no matter which one you go to, right? You go to Howard's campus, you have, you know, your people within this group, you know, your conspiracy theorist crowd, you got your sports crowd. Every HBCU is kind of the same in terms of, like, you know, the different crowds you see, but they're all, you know, black folks who are learning. So it's a beautiful experience. But Dev, I know you as a Howard guy can relate to that. Like people graduating from Howard and, like, coming there knows that people.
Yeah, and the talking about the experience that you like, that's the most invaluable thing that I got out of the whole thing. I was far from a scholar in undergrad, but I commend the brothers and sisters who come in at 17 and 18 years old, you know, fully knowing, maybe not fully knowing who they are, but if I can use a word that, you know, that probably gets overused now, like they come in woke, when the rest of us, because I can speak for myself when I say, you know, what Akil what he kind of described earlier, like people that come in, they worried about messing with the girls, worried about being seen, stuff like that. That's kind of how it was when I started college. But the experience of being there kind of shapes the human being that you become. And, you know, when I look back on my time at a HBCU, that's what I think about the most. Like it wasn't the academic thing, even though, you know, of course, that's valuable to most people in your own way or another. But the experience, what I learned, and the way I think it molded me was the most valuable thing for me.
Yeah. So I think that's one thing that I thought about when watching this movie. Other thing I found interesting, and, you know, I don't know if you guys did, is what was his butler's name?
Coleman,
whatever his name was, right? Coleman. How like Coleman in the beginning when he was dealing with Winthrop, he just like wasn't feeling him, didn't like him at all. And then when the switch happened and they had the party, and he looked like he was just enjoying himself, and that reminded me, I was like, man, they love our culture, but they don't love us. That's what came to mind when I saw him at that party, and he's sitting there smiling and laughing and like, oh, your friends are enjoying themselves. It was like, that's what came to mind for me. I don't know if any of you had that same type of experience.
And he almost felt bad. It's like he had some type of sympathy for him, because he was like, you know, he knew what was going on. He knew that the Duke brothers was just playing the game. Eddie Murphy didn't really know what the deal was, but he kind of was just showing some, like, you know, whatever you do, just be yourself, because they can't take that away from you. You know what I mean? So it was like, I guess he was supposed to be like the the sympathetic, like I guess good white person in the movie.
It's always one.
But again, yeah, but that whole white liberal thing, you know what I'm saying? Because he still was entrenched within the system. He's like, I got my position within this system and within this structure. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, but Coleman was like,
Yeah.
he treated, but again, like Winthorpe treated Coleman dirty. Like he was like, yo, you're beneath me. Like even though you're white, you're still beneath me. You know?
And that's that classism. That classism.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying? And shout out to everybody out there watching, trying to help me out. Coleman, Sai said from YouTube says Coleman. Yeah, you're right. That was his name. One thing I want to Corey, shout out to you for coming back, but I want to bring up another point that had this conversation too, right? So all of us either from Philly or spending a lot of time in Philadelphia. Are you originally from Philly?
No. Originally, I was originally born in New York.
Baltimore?
I grew up in Baltimore. Spent my formative years.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, but you've been in Philly for a while, right? So I read an article in the paper, and it was saying that Philadelphia, amongst the East Coast, this is a little shocking. It said had the most six-figure earners, right? But the city has the most six-figure earners, but at the same time, it's the poorest big city on the East Coast. Like so, and I thought about that article when watching this movie because it's almost like a tale of two cities, right? These guys live in the same city of Philadelphia, and they are clueless to how the other half lives, acts, and the whole nature versus nurture thing. That's the whole experiment, and that was ringing to me too because it's still like that in 2020. There are people who live in Chestnut Hill, Rittenhouse Square, and by the way, that house that Winthorpe's house that became I was about to say Axel Foley that became Billy Ray Valentine's house. That house is actually on the market right this second as we speak for $8 million. But that's a whole side note.
But the montage in the beginning shows the neighborhoods though. Like so, if you look at the montage in the beginning, it shows the closeness of the neighborhoods. Like it shows the rich neighborhoods and the poor neighborhoods literally right on top of each other. So that's definitely part of the movie. They give you that give you that visual right from the beginning. And then they show the boy coming out out his crib, getting into a stretch Benz. So
with a driver,
with a driver.
So remember,
that's the crazy part. These neighborhoods aren't even that far apart.
Remember how they emphasized the part when like Coleman came out there and just stood there on some like. It was like bro, you could have just opened up the door and hopped in, but then he was like almost like Coleman hurry the fuck up and open this door, I think they did it on purpose, like the writers did that on purpose.
They did do it on purpose.
His douche game was on the beam. His douche game was on the beam. He was like major dude. I was dying laughing at how douchey he was. Like when he came in the facility and didn't even look the dude in the eyes and didn't look at anybody in the eyes. And they're like, good morning. And he's like walking by him. Like,
I mean, they had to play that up so you could get the full gravity of the switch when it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. But
he was terrible.
But that's definitely like something that you still see. You still see that in Philadelphia to this day as a tale of two cities. And a lot of these neighborhoods aren't that far apart. And they live just completely different lives. Like they don't even know what goes on in the other culture neighborhood. So you see that in the 80s, and that still exists in 2020. Right.
Can I add something to that? I think also like that's something that happens that the mainstream media definitely does, even within the black collective, the black community or black collective, because a lot of times this whole notion that look at all these black millionaires. And look at all these, people in the black middle class that make six figures. That's often played up and like overemphasized so that we'll kind of forget that, it's still a whole lot of poor black people that's really not.
Most of us are poor, yeah.
Yeah, the same thing is happening like within our community, within our collective. And like a lot of times it's like, because it's almost like, well, we're gonna show you, give a lot of attention to these rappers, these entertainers, and some of these professional people that might be making a lot of money. But so it's like, what are y'all complaining about? I thought all y'all was winning, but and then that again we get into all this math. That deals with people having a real understanding of statistics, and what like is it an outlier or is that inside the bell curve? You know what I'm saying? So we think, oh well, I seen this one. Somebody might be like, I seen this one person that, like, you know, he's a millionaire. So then people think, okay, that means that everybody's a millionaire because one person is a millionaire. And again, it shows our kind of ignorance in terms of a collective ignorance of like how statistics really work and how statistics can be manipulated to basically confuse and trick people into supporting an agenda to put forth a certain idea and a certain belief system.
Yeah, I was gonna say people say numbers don't lie, but that's bullshit because numbers are made by, you know, the whoever writes the problem gets to solve the problem. And so the numbers tell the story of whoever wrote the problem.
Yeah, definitely you can manipulate them. Manipulate them and make them do what you want them to do.
So the numbers tell a story. They tell the story of the person who wrote the numbers. You know what I mean? So, you know, that part when you talk about all this math, that's the part that you know, that bothers me, right? Because, you know, Jim, you were talking earlier about proximity to whiteness, but it's more about proximity to money, right? Because I see our people out here, you know, trying to get their proximity to whiteness, and that really actually doesn't bother me that much because if you want to be around them, knowing how they is, you know, more power to you. But the proximity to, you know, I know somebody who got a lot of money, and it makes poor people feel rich. Like that's berserk to me. Like you watching somebody else go get it. Like no, like if they going to go get it, go in and go. You know what I mean? It's like watching somebody else score 46 points and talking about we won in the game in a rough house. That's like watching somebody. That's like watching somebody go hit the winning basket in the rough house and be like, yeah, we won. Like, no, dog, like, what the hell are you doing? You ain't win nothing.
But you know,
watch me win.
And you often wonder if it's done by design because people live in their bubbles, right? So just being active here in Philadelphia in the community, I run across people that a couple people, right? So people who are educators, like, you know, higher education, maybe a college professor, people that are doctors, right? And they live within their ecosystem. So when we have conversation, I'll never forget this. I'm not gonna put the guy's name out there, but he's a professor, a black professor at a school here in Philadelphia. And I was explaining to him how a lot of kids don't have internet access. And he thought I was lying. And he told me, you're lying. Like, he just didn't believe me. It didn't occur to him that people live a certain way because he's caught up in his bubble of academia. So the people that he comes in contact with, you know, live a certain way. But, you know, you gotta like get out your bubble sometimes and understand what's going on around you, right? So we got another comment here from, all right, Anthony Strong. Shout out to you, Anthony. Can't sit on the sidelines and say you had a part. He's talking about what you said, Corey, and that's true.
Shout out to Cliff Livingston.
It's absolutely true. You got to go get your own, right? Yeah, man. But so that's another one. Let me see.
I'm assuming that conversation was surrounding this whole pandemic and kids having to do work from home and stuff like that. Was that what that conversation was about?
Yeah.
I heard that as well. Like, people just don't understand that every kid can't go home and basically telework. Right, and have it like that.
Yeah.
Or they got internet and there's 7 of them in there in one computer.
Right.
You got 5 kids and you got one computer. So even if you got internet, you don't have the access to the machinery to actually get on your internet and do anything. Right? Like right now, my internet is Trick Daddy's. I'm out here. I ain't got, I'm hoping and praying that I don't crash again because my internet service so poor. Like that. Like, but that's something I notice when I'm in like when I travel and I go to foreign countries. I'm real like the first thing that I notice is that the internet is trash, right? And so it bothers me to be somewhere where the internet is trash, like because my
first world
American
exactly.
No, that's exactly what it is. That's what I was about to say. Like that's my trashy American first world problem. But it bothers me when I'm somewhere where I don't have access to high speed internet. And
yeah.
So
but you know what though?
I understand that issue on a different level because I teach in the inner city and I know these kids don't have the access or the machines. And so I'm not ignorant to the fact that a lot of these kids wasn't able to complete those assignments, not because they didn't want to, but because they didn't have the access to do it.
Right.
And that comes into the whole conversation of empathy. And by the way, for those watching, do me a favor and hit the like button. I don't care if you on YouTube, like the John, or if you're on Facebook or whatever, because that helps us out. But real quick though, I just want to say that the gentleman I was talking about, he's an Ivy League educated brother, very smart brother, but just has like no clue about how people live, and doesn't have like the empathy needed. And that's also something that came into play me when watching the movie on both ends. When Winthorpe, was in his spot, and so Billy Ray had a little bit more because he had the experience.
Yeah.
But it was something that was said in the money, which was in the movie, which was funny. It was like the best way to hurt rich people was to turn them poor, right? So
Right.
I thought that was an excellent quote from the movie too. So I know, Kill, I know you got some other thoughts that you've written down because talking to you, I know you took a lot from this movie. So what are some of the other things that you took from this movie?
So before I get to that, I was going to add on to what y'all were discussing about in terms of like, the brother professor who didn't understand or didn't want to accept the fact that there were a lot of inner city youth that didn't have internet access. I think a lot of times what also happens is there's an internalized anti-blackness that a lot of us have, which will not allow us to provide the benefit of the doubt to our own people. Whereas it's like, oh, okay, well, because if I already think that there's something wrong with you and you have some type of pathology, then regardless of what the situation is, I'm going to antagonize you no matter what. But if I have a fundamental belief in your humanity, then I might give you the benefit of the doubt. I might be like, all right, well, maybe you probably did do the best you could with the resources you had, but let me think about how I can help you, or at least I'll be understanding. But when you feel like, nah, basically like, I don't trust black people. I think that, y'all are, you're always trying to steal or doing something negative. Then when it's like, because then we have the conversations about, we quick to, a lot of us, not all of us, a lot of us quick to go, well, oh, but you don't got internet, but your kids got Jordans though. Oh, you don't got internet, but your kids got iPhones though. Like, you know what I mean? So we don't even know those people's real situation. Like, we don't know that. But a lot of us, we got that internalized anti-blackness. So we avoid having the cognitive dissonance. We just go with that. And it just makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you also had that contingent who, like, they like you said, they can't get out their own bubble. It's like, if I can do it, then why can't y'all? And that's just not always realistic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
It's almost similar to when he said, like, he got money for drugs though, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like. Like,
you see where that comes from, though, Jack. When I was in school, I visited an Ivy League school, and it was a different world. So, the kind of mentality and the mindset they have probably just comes from what they were used to. I visited a Ivy League school back in like '95, and everything they did was on a computer. Then I go back to Howard. None of us even have computers in our room.
Right.
I went to school with a word processor. So it's a whole different thing. And they're probably in awe that we don't do things the same way. Or if they even knew that we didn't do things the same way, they probably thought that was the only way to do things. And we all didn't have it like that to be able
on the other side of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
To build institutions for ourselves that give us the advantages that we think that we should have, right? And so not to just say, all right, we don't have those things is okay, but to actually build something and to build the things that we wanted to see us have, right? And so just don't leave it there and say, oh, don't leave it at empathy and say, oh, damn, that's messed up. And don't be too far on the other side and say, damn, I didn't even know that happens. F them. Like, we have to actually build those things to make to, you know what I mean? Like, if we think we should have them, we should build them.
Yeah, it should,
you know what I mean? So
that's how the story plays out. Like we had, we ended up with computer labs, but what I saw there was, okay, you can't come here without your own machine to do all of your assignments. You either have that or you don't. With us, okay, we got the little community place that we can go to and get on a computer when we need to. But people didn't understand that difference. So I can see where mind state comes from that brother.
Oh, no doubt.
So Jim, another thing I was asking what thoughts I had. I'm gonna throw this out there because I like this continuum with this movies about money concept. I saw a connection to Gordon Gekko in our last conversation about the movie Wall Street, because I was just thinking about Clarence Beeks and what he represented to them. You know what I mean? how Gekko had that conversation with Bud Fox in the limousine. He straight was letting him know, like, listen, you got by any means necessary. You know, we cheat basically. You know what I'm saying? We win. Quick. We do whatever we got to do. You know what I'm saying? Lie, cheat, steal, do whatever. So here it is. You got the Duke brothers. They pay Clarence Beeks 50 racks to steal the crop report. You know what I'm saying? So that they could corner the orange juice futures market. But then it's like that's something that nobody was supposed to know about. And you think about all these like large corporations, all these wealthy Europeans that will look down their nose at black people for being poor. When it's like, yo, you ain't get that by merit. You got that from stealing. You know what I mean? Stealing and lying and cheating and whatever. So it's like, again, to me, it showed a consistent theme of, do whatever you got to do to to lie, cheat, and steal to win in capitalism.
But my thing is that's really how they get busy though. Like they really want them by any means. Like their history suggests that that's what they do. So why would you think that they would do anything different? Like that's my number one reason I don't trust any white person is because your history suggests I shouldn't. Your whole entire history of the race of your people says if I trust you in the end, you going to do me dirty every single time. And so this is why I don't do nothing that says intercultural or intersectional or interracial or none of that. Because your history suggests that if I do that, you're going to do me as dirty as you possibly can. And so
I'm only laughing because your level of honesty. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate it. It's refreshing.
I mean, I say what it is from my perspective, and whether you like it or not is not my problem. So I feel you. That's a you problem. Not you specifically, but you know what I mean. Like
it's been like that as long as I know.
What you're saying, there's Rayford. It's well documented. What you're talking about is well documented in history. Rayford Logan, who taught at Howard, Rayford Logan, historian, has a book called The Betrayal of the Negro. And in this book, he just outlines and specifically documents all these situations, like where Europeans have fucked us over, like the Tilden Hayes Compromise in 1876. All these Tuskegee syphilis experiment, all these types of things. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like we're not conspiracy theorists when we talk about we mention these things.
All right, so you got a comment from Monica, and I want to show you guys because it goes right along the lines of what you just said. It said Billy Ray showed empathy for Winthrop. Winthrop never showed empathy for Billy Ray. In my opinion, we're always so forgiving and empathetic to people. And man, I know you guys agree with that part.
Cosign to the nth degree.
Definitely agree.
You see it now, right? With people sending emails out saying, "Hey, we sorry, Black Lives Matter," and then people like getting excited and like, "Look at my company. My favorite streaming company says they care about me." Like I've literally seen people say this stuff over the last couple of days, and I'm sitting like, and it's mind-boggling. I'm like, "Yo, your company is saying this, but they don't have one black person on their C-suite. They don't have one black person on their board, but they can send you an email and then all is forgiven."
The hiring manager is white. Is white as driven snow. Like is nobody in any position to do anything to make a difference in that company has black skin.
It's all a hustle, man. It's all a hustle. I was thinking about I watched what's his name, the mayor out in LA, Garcetti, his conference, news conference, and it was on YouTube. And I was like really trying because I realized like you really just like with mathematics, math is a language, you got to decode it. And with a lot of these like this white liberal language, just like with the white conservative language, sometimes you got to decode it and you got to think, okay, white, what are y'all really trying to do? So they talking about, people are talking about Garcetti. Oh, he's the good white guy because they talking about defunding the police and taking money from the police department and putting it over here. And it's like, first of all, that's not the government's money. That money came from the taxpayers. A lot of them are the black people that are getting the shit beat out of them in LA anyway, right? So it's really an issue of allocation. So we shouldn't have to ask you or shouldn't have to come to this for us to for you to make a move and decide to, allocate our money in a different way anyway. But another thing I thought about is this language. And a lot of these mayors are going to probably have the same language if they start talking about defunding police departments or at least taking some of the money away. They're using the word investment. So if it's an investment, if you take the money you invest in the black community, what are you trying to get out of it? So it means you're trying to get something out of the black community. So therefore,
return.
The question of what is your return going to be? So now it's like, now you're talking about neo-colonialism. You might think some programs and then to train some more Negroes that's going to be docile, stay in line, do what you want them to do, you know, be good boys and be good niggas, right? That are not going to upset the system, and also ultimately help the system remain intact and remain powerful. Because you know, it's not like, because once you use that word investment, it's like, because we talk about investment, like I want something out of that investment. I want a return. Like
there's never been a conversation with everything going on about giving away power. Also, just want to point out, shout out to Romero. He's sent you a shout out, Kill. So he's watching.
But speaking on these companies, right? And I want to go back to the movie, Trading Places. When they was in the bathroom, he was huddled up in the bathroom, and you know they was having a conversation back and forth. Where he finally figured out what they was doing, and he was like, "You really think I'd let a nigger run our company?" You know what I mean? And like that's exactly what these these companies are doing to us. Like, you know what I mean? Like, really, you really think?
But hold on, though.
He's like, we'll say some good stuff right now, but that would keep the goodwill. But
but to Kill's point, right? So it seemed like one of them was on his side the whole time until it got to that part. He's like, hold up, like the whole idea of the white liberal versus conservative. And when it got to that point, he's like, whoa. Yeah. I ain't going that far.
And then again, so this is why we gotta be smarter around the white liberals, because Randolph was the white liberal. But Randolph said we took a perfectly useless psychopath. We took a perfectly useless
when he was talking in the car, that's exactly we took a perfectly useless psychopath and turned him into a great Wall Street trader.
Right.
Like, damn, dog.
Exactly. I think Monica made a really good point. Monica made a really good point, because if we're speaking about everything that's going on right now and the companies, with the emails and all that kind of stuff, how long, if they lost to sleep with all this kindness that they're giving the Black community right now, like how long before we go back to status quo, but we're forgiving because of all the niceties that everybody expressed during this period. And if you think
that's what he got
back to Trading Places about us being, about Winthorpe being, about Billy Ray Valentine being so forgiving, Winthorpe, think about it. He would have never befriended him if if getting his job back or getting his wealth back wasn't on the line.
Right.
Even the plot of that movie, it's the exact same thing. He would have never befriended.
That's a good point.
Not for that.
He used them to get what he wanted.
Yeah, and to that point, real quick, we got a comment on Facebook from Jose Sanchez. He says there was a study done some years ago that cited that Blacks are the most forgiving of racists in this country. And the correlation was based on religion, as Blacks are also the most among religions. So what do you guys think about that?
100% agree.
It's true. Yeah. Religion puts you on your knees. The first thing religion do is put you on your knees.
How many times do we get wronged and you see the people saying, well, pray for your enemies, or you have to, pray for it. You see it all the
time. That's fugazi.
Yeah, it's like it's a very docile and weak interpretation, because it's like we had some people like you got Henry Highland Garnett, who was a Presbyterian minister, got into beef with not a physical beef, but had differences with Douglas back in the 19th century, because he was like, listen, you can't be a good Christian if you allow yourself to be enslaved. So we need to rise up and kill all these slave masters. So it's like, but we don't usually get that type of interpretation, and those people aren't going to be on the news or on TV. But you bring up religion. I thought about religion too from another part of the movie, when at the end, when it was at the commodities exchange, and they realize they see Winthorpe out there, they see Billy Ray Valentine out there, and they're like, what's the first thing he says? Like Mortimer says, or he says, God help us. And I'm like, so now we got to think about your interpretation, their interpretation of religion, or their interpretation of Christianity, because again, you got to remember, like, the Ku Klux Klan is a religious organization. Like, all the slave trade was sanctioned.
Yeah, great point. That's a great point.
These people prayed to God to sanction it, to bless their ships. I was talking earlier today about how the Catholic Church, sanctioned the slave trade so that Portugal and Spain would stop beefing with each other. So then we got to look. So I think if we deal with the religion, we got to look at it in terms of not how they look at it or how they try to sell it to us and kick it to us, because they're going to kick it to us in a way where we're going to be enslaved and we're going to be on the losing end. We got to interpret it in a way that like benefits us, and where it can be revolutionary as it possibly can be. But I think a lot of people just take, the lessons from, our oppressors, where they tell us like, just be docile, like.
I mean,
but when our oppressors look like us,
but that also goes to who controls the media.
Our oppressors look like us, though. Our oppressors.
But
look
that also
just
goes
like
to
us.
who controls the narrative. Who controls that narrative, right? Like you just said, there's people who are actual Christians. Nat Turner was a Christian, right? So it's about who controls that narrative and gives us. So this goes into the idea of controlling the media, and it goes into the idea of brainwash. Like we're brainwashed, we're brandwashed. All of these things come into play when you start talking about that, because you have Christian leaders, Black Christian leaders through our times who weren't about that. They weren't about turning the other cheek. But
Not
you'll
at
never
all.
get them. They'll give you docile leaders, right? That's what they'll give you, right? We've had speaking of capitalism, and we've had Christian leaders like who've taught about like getting ownership or getting your own or creating your own independent. Like we're not taught about that. Like we're not taught about the 1036, right? Those are the things we're not given. We're given the docile leadership, which goes to the whole idea of controlling the media. That's all I want to say on that. But we have to control the narrative, right? So, and this is another comment. I just want to give this brother a shout out real quick. Jonathan Nar says we have to control our narrative. We have to control our narrative. So you're right, and that's why we need platforms that to tell our stories. Because again, to me that's what's interesting about that from a historical standpoint. When you start talking about Christian leaders who weren't as docile, right? So here's another comment real quick. I'm going to put this up here from Jonathan R. So the Jewish neighborhood does it with their religious leaders.
Yeah, they put the
right.
They put them as the head, and then you follow that, or you get excommunicated. You get bounced. So we don't have that. We don't have
in our last podcast. Our last podcast we did with brother Joe Wilson was about building Black investment clubs so we can work together. And one of the points he made is with how we try to hold our religious leaders up, but and as much as we give them, it doesn't come back for the most part. Now there are some, but for the most part we just don't. So man, it's amazing how this movie can give us into all these amazing conversations. So Kill, I know you got some more fire over there, man.
I got something real subtle that I peeped. I've never peeped before out of all the hundreds of times I watched this movie. But if you remember, and I was looking at this in like a historical context. If you remember how the Duke brothers, when they went to pick up what they thought was the actual crop report, but Beeks was like in a cage with a gorilla somewhere, and they didn't do that. But then I peeped how they used a regular chauffeur. The regular chauffeur was just sitting there, used them to drive, and it made me think like, damn, like this is how they underestimate us, and this is also like how I started thinking about chattel slavery and how a lot of times it would be the house slaves that would be so instrumental in helping out with the rebellions because they would have the information. Because the whites in the house, they would just be talking freely, thinking, oh, like we don't gotta keep no secrets from them. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't respect their intelligence. They're not human anyway. It's kind of like almost like, well, my dog is here. I'm gonna tell all the details of my scheme that I got laid out that I'm gonna get into. My dog and my cattle right here. So you got house slaves and they talking around them. And it just made me think of that whole connection between like how these things never change. It's like you got these wealthy men that's really doing some deep cover, illegal, SEC violation type, embezzlement or insider trading type of move. And it's like the brother just like in the car, like he know what's going on. And I'm sure they hopped back in the Bentley and had a conversation about it. And I was like, damn, like Hollywood, they just put it out there, just let it be. Whatever. And I think that's their loss. You know what I'm saying? And I'm glad that there's been many times throughout history that, we take advantage of that. And, some of us, we're more proactive in terms of being the scoops that sat by the door. And some of us just randomly are just in the right place at the right time. So we find stuff out. And then we just, we help out with that. But that was
But to that point, there was a part in the movie where they were actually talking about their bet right in front of Billy Ray. And he had made this like that's another thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Every time, but he made this look. He does a couple times in the movie. He looks at the camera like that's the funniest thing for some reason. I don't know why I find that funny. A couple more comments real quick. I want to get you guys' opinion on. Shout out to everybody chiming in. We definitely appreciate the love. Leon Sullivan basically built Progress Plaza using the 1036 method. We're not taught
He
that.
didn't basically build it. He definitely built it. It wasn't basically. He built it.
Shout out to Leon Sullivan.
Yeah, we're not.
He's my favorite Philadelphian.
Is your favorite Philadelphian?
Yep.
No doubt. If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, look up Leon Sullivan and the 1036 method. That was actually pretty significant part of history, specifically as a Black Philadelphian that we're never really taught about. Another comment from the brother Jose Sanchez. He talks about a church in Harlem, right? During the 90s, they bought a bunch of property, and they've since been selling these properties to developers for millions without giving back to the parishioners who supported them buying these properties. So they basically took advantage. They took advantage of their people that actually put the money up. So that goes to like our religious leaders and you know, why we don't have the same success. Man, I know you guys got some thoughts on that. I see you shaking your head, Corey.
I'm trying not to double barrel slack. You know, I'm trying not to double barrel religion, right? Because if I double barrel religion, then you know, people love their God so much that they'll turn off, and I don't want you to turn off from the overall message, which is stop your religious leaders from being crooks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, stop. Like, because really, what I want to say is run far from that shit as you possibly can, because it don't do you no good. History also suggests that your religion got your ass in the place that you in. But I'm not going to go all the way down that line. I'm just going to say stop your religious leaders from being such dicks.
Yeah, but I think religious leaders who do things like that is what makes the church the most polarizing entity in the Black community. Because, you know, you have people who, no matter what, like they're going to be loyal to the church, but then you have people who think about acts like that and they have this distrust for the church and for religion, and it just turns people completely off.
Yeah. And it is a very...
That brother made a comment
about our community
about Harlem in the 90s. That makes me think of another movie that we should talk about at another time. Who's the Man?
Yeah.
The Man. Who's the Man really was talking about settler colonialism, aka gentrification, way before it was a thing. You know what I'm saying? They laid out all those. I remember watching it recently, like a couple years ago. I'm like, yo, like this movie. Because when I was younger, I wanted to watch it because it had all the rappers in it. And it was just distracted by just all the rappers, but I watched the jewels and what was being broken down in there.
When I told people that we were doing this, I got a couple messages like, you know, people would start recommending different movies they want us to analyze and break down. I had these conversations about, and someone said like Strictly Business was about like gentrification. I was like, I haven't watched it in a long time, but it's interesting. You say who's the man?
The Hollering brothers, right? They ended up going to the Black thing to do the deal, right?
Yep.
Remember that part?
Yeah, but I gotta watch it. I haven't watched that in a while, but that was someone sent me that message. So a couple more comments, and shout to Jonathan for kicking it with us. He's putting a lot of information out here, and I want to highlight this. I think it's important. He says East New York has an initiative called the East New York Community Land Trust. They're trying to bring Black ownership back to the hood, which is important. I gotta look that up. I haven't heard about it.
More power.
Yeah, I haven't heard about that. That, and also just real quick, in terms of the whole religious conversation, there's a difference between religion and spirituality. I agree with that. Right. I saw something today. There was a brother who was a Central grad, right? And he had put out a post. He wrote a book, and his book is like, it's called something like Take the Church Out of the Building or something. So he's like a Christian pastor, whatever. His whole initiative is about taking church out of the building. Like, church is not about the building. The building is about ego. The actual work's not in the building. So I thought that was kind of interesting too, right? And that goes to Jonathan's point about the difference between religion and spirituality. But man, listen, I can go on all day about trading places. Any other major thoughts you guys want to bring up?
I thought about the symbolism, like the symbolism and just some of the. I'm gonna name some. So in the Duke Brothers in the Duke Brothers office, and I think we got to be like, we watch movies just in terms of like, you know, just media literacy, like for young people, to just kind of understand like who people have love for. So the Duke Brothers, you peep how they have. I wrote the names down. You see the bust of Ben Franklin. You got, who was a slaveholder. Then you got the pic of Ronald Reagan, right? The picture of Ronald Reagan. We know what he got into, right? and how his actions affected the black community in the 1980s. A picture of Richard Nixon. So we take that back to 72. And then even like with Richard Nixon and his program to try to get us to replace the Black Power movement with black capitalism, but not even a black capitalism that really was about institution building and control for us. It's like, we're going to give y'all some of the crumbs from the wealthy white people, right? Dwight Eisenhower, had a picture of him. And I don't fuck with Eisenhower because Eisenhower was the president that was, alive when Lumumba got assassinated, you know what I'm saying, over in the Congo, you know what I'm saying? So when I think of him, that's what I think about. Of course, they got the typical picture of George Washington. You got to have the George Washington pick. But just those ideas. And then also, I guess, in terms of, since we're talking about nation building, well, independent nation building for black people, for African people, then, this movie is it makes me think more about like farming, makes me think more about land, and because our people got to eat. And, so they're dealing with the commodity side of it and, investing in the different commodities, futures, and the cocoa, the sugar, the coffee beans, the orange juice, and the cotton and all of that. It really makes me think more about like how we can get into the science of that. And then, the last thing I wanted to say was, it's this quote from the Secretary of Agriculture. I don't know if y'all familiar with this, but the Secretary of Agriculture in 1976, he was asked to step down. And I remember I was watching a lecture by Frances Cress Welsing, and she was talking about Europeans. And she said that the Secretary of Agriculture in 1976, who served under Richard Nixon and served under Gerald Ford after him, he was asked to step down because he's a racist white dude from Indiana. And he made this comment. He said, basically all the coloreds or the niggas want is loose shoes, tight pussy, and a warm place to shit. So, and these are like, this was the Secretary of Agriculture saying it, and it's documented. You can Google that, look that up. Look, his name was Secretary of Agriculture Earl Butz. Earl Butz, B-U-T-Z. Earl Butz, that's what he said. And
can't make that up. Can't make that up.
Show like, and again, to the people that are out here today that are angry by police terrorism or racism or whatever, it's like, this is not new. Like, that happened in 1976, and it wasn't new in 1976. So, but again, like, one of the things this movie definitely made me think more about is like, in terms of, in the context of nation building, like, how are we going to feed our people? And a lot of things in this movie can push us to think about like, damn, well, we do need a lot of wheat, and we do need a lot of orange juice, and we need all these things. And then one other thing too, because I thought about Bobby Wright, because when Bobby Wright mentioned that, he said Russia is not Marxist, Russia is not communist, Russia is nationalist. And he said if they wasn't nationalists, they wouldn't be buying wheat from the United States. And I thought about that. Now I haven't studied Marxism or communism enough to really substantiate what he said on my own. But what I will say is that, we got to think about like, like what are those that are higher up in the power structure really? What type of moves are they making? And then what are they telling us? Because it's kind of almost like, because remember earlier in this conversation, I was like, yo, this part made me think about American History X. And if you remember that movie, American History X, when he was all gung-ho, Nazi this, Nazi that, he goes to jail, and then he's looking at the old head Nazis, and he really believed in the shit that they was teaching him and what he was reading in Mein Kampf and all that. But then you see the older Nazis doing drug deals with the black people. So he like, whoa, what y'all doing? And they had to kick it to him like, listen, mind your business. This don't concern you. So it's like the higher ups, they have a certain type of, plan in place, and they need those that are like lower, I guess, so to speak, to just kind of play their part. They got pawns. It's like game theory. You got different levels of participants, in the situation. Mm-hmm. So it made me think of like about a lot of them things. A lot of the things from taking a look at it now.
And we got a couple comments I want to bring up real quick. We got Jonathan, right, who asked the question, you guys participate in the financial markets, futures, forex, stocks? Absolutely, that's exactly what we do. And I was going to bring up a point about that as well. I'm going to show this real fast. He also asked, he makes a point, move away from gambling, etc., learn how to invest our own money. I think it's that part, but I think we also learn to invest together. Right? You look at these big entities, whether we're talking about Duke and Duke or whatever it may be, they're not built with one person or one person's money. It's about group economics, for one. And for two, also what I thought about in watching this movie, when you talk about how we're going to feed ourselves, it also reminded me of something that we talk to our students. So shout out to all our students from Bodyhood University. I see some of you guys watching right now, and it's about information that you have that's valuable, but you don't even recognize that it is valuable, right? And I say that because when he came in and he was talking about why he wanted to make the trade that he wanted to make, he took all the information he had, like, you know, had nothing to do with the fundamentals that you're taught or any sort of analysis in terms of you know, trading commodities. It was all about what he knew from the street. But there's a value in that. There's an absolute value in that in the market, right? It's an absolute value in that. And you know, me and Corey just did actual live last week. We talked about the investor mindset when you start when you see things. But again, it's about taking that to help build the community. And we have people that have different skill sets. So when I watched this, I was like, man, we don't even recognize how powerful we can be. And this is a good example for it, you know?
Yeah.
So
Jose, in terms of value, remember this real quick. Remember the scene? Winthorpe goes to the pawn shop. He's trying to sell his watch.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's retail $6,000
in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia is for $50. So again, value. Like it's subjective based on, like, you know, who's in a position of power. In that situation, BB King was in a position of power. So he's like, I'm only giving you $50 for that. Now I hope that if that was a real life situation, BB King's character would take that watch and then go flip it and get that $6,000 or for whatever. But he told that white man, listen, I'm only $50.
He said it was an exclusive Ross Fouché. I never even heard of that before. I went and looked it up as real because I was like, is this a real thing? Like, you know, y'all don't know about this Ross Fouché. Like, what y'all know about this?
I know in Philadelphia that watch worth $50.
$50.
Yeah, like I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Philadelphia. So Jose says, in order for that to be taken serious, we need certified traders so we can generate serious capital. We have them though. Like, and we talk to traders like all day long on our podcast. We actually have like certified traders, and people who are licensed commodities traders, options traders. Like, so we have them. But the thing is, we like, you know, and to Corey makes this point all the time, everybody's working in a silo, right? Yeah. Whether someone's talking about like urban farming or, you know, getting capital together. Even within the industry that the real estate game, we all working in silos. I know so many successful people, but none of us are working together, and it's crazy. Like, it's just difficult to do. Some
people say
here's something. I don't know if you noticed this.
We're not as disorganized. We're disconnected.
Okay.
I think it's
good point.
We'll see that.
Here you go. So the Heritage Club had a plaque on the front of the building that said "Liberty and Justice for All."
Who are they speaking of? That's what I was about to bring up. That's the point that I was exactly about to bring up, right? So, the big ass sign right in the front that said "Liberty and Justice for All," and then the first thing they do is the ball bumped into him, and then they chase him around and bang him and lock him up. Like, that right there. And then the second part about the Heritage Club that made me laugh, right, is that when he came back, when he had on the cross color suit, and he came back and he tried to go talk to his girl, and Ball was rubbing on his girl's shoulder. They told him, like,
drugs here, Louis.
Yeah, we don't want any of your drugs. And they was like, yo, like, so they was like, you're an embarrassment. So when he came back, they treated Boy like straight pond scum because they thought my man stole $150 and sold drugs. So like that whole visual I was crying. Like that's my favorite part of the movie. When he coming in and he talking, Boy rubbing on this girl's shoulder and like yo, like, get out of here. We don't want your drugs. Get out of here, dude. Like, so that part had me crying. Like, but the name of the thing about the Heritage Club is though you ain't see no brothers, and so that's the thing about the Heritage Club that I noticed right away. I was like, damn, they
same here. You know what's funny about that?
All that money in house.
When they had that in 2020, you still got the same. You got Heritage Clubs in 2020.
Yeah,
all over the place. Yeah. And my thing is, listen, here's my perspective.
They got tokens now, though.
Yeah.
My perspective is I ain't mad at them. We need our own Heritage Club. That's my perspective. My perspective is, look, have your Heritage Club. We need our Heritage Club.
For having it. I just found it extreme. Like I was on the floor dying the other night when I rewatched it.
Where's our Heritage Club? You know what I'm saying?
It's at the HBCUs. It's at the HBCUs y'all talking about. let me stop.
Yeah.
Because
But you know what's funny about that?
I'm gonna say this also, like in terms of like the plaque outside the Heritage Club. I think what it exposes is that it really, when it says liberty and justice for all,
it meant all white people.
Yeah, exactly. It's really no contradiction because they have been firm and clear in the Constitution itself. Like to them, as far as they're concerned, we are not humans. We are not humans, and they've made it abundantly clear throughout their documentation. They're unapologetic about it, and I think what that says is that we can either respond to that in one of two ways. We can either try to convince them that we're human and say things like Black Lives Matter, or we can say, all right, if you want to believe that, that's your problem. That's on you. We know we're human. I know I'm human. I know all our children are human, and our grandchildren will be human or are human if they're alive now. And we're going to function and live and exist in a place where we can be human. And that's just all it is to it. And that's what we're going to use our energy for. So it's like, all right, cool. So if y'all think that, liberty and justice for all white and white men with money, you know what I'm saying? Because we didn't even get a chance to get into how, you know what I'm saying, like the gender dynamic, because Jamie Lee Curtis, being a prostitute and everything, and how like she was poor from a mining town or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So that's again how they treat their own. That's another thing, how they treat their own.
Yeah. He used her money at the end to make the come up though. He used her 42 racks to make the come up.
Flip the money just like
she still stacked 42 racks.
Yeah.
Yo, and Jonathan, real quick, Jonathan, I just want to highlight your comment that you're looking for other investors of different asset classes that look like you to train our people. That's exactly what we do. We actually have BotherHillUniversity.com, but shoot us a message, shoot us an inbox, and we'll get in touch with you, and we'll build that way. So what's funny to me about the Heritage Club is when they had that Christmas party and the black dude is speaking to him and he's looking at him like, yo, who are you? Like that's the only time they had another black dude in the movie. I don't know if you remember that part. And he's like, Merry Christmas. He said Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, one or the other, but he gave him a look like, up on him and shake his hand. And he
yeah.
He looked like, why are you speaking to me? Like, and that was another funny part about that. Like, I literally thought that when I saw it, I was like, man, look at all these people, because there was so many of them when they had them stand up in the line, and wasn't one black face in the whole place, man.
But the crazy part is, boy was in the corner, and he was, Eddie Murphy walked by, and he was like, oh no, I'm not the only nigga no more. Oh man, right. Let me go over here and talk to the boy so I can keep my status and go shake his hand. Because he was over there shaking hands with the brothers, with the Duke brothers.
Yeah.
And so Paul was like, ho! I can't let my nigga status go to number 2. Let me go shake hands with the boy and put my nigga status back at the top.
How much do you think that happens in corporate America?
Every day, 20 times a day in every office, where there was one black dude and they hire a second.
It's like the movie. It's like another movie. Not Another Teen Movie. Remember that scene when the boy from Save the Last Dance was in there, and it was supposed to be Bud from the Cosby Show, and he walked into the kitchen at the little house party with the white people, and he's like, "What are you doing?"
Okay.
He's like, "I'm supposed to be the only black person in this movie. Like, what are you doing? Like, it can't be 2 of us." The boy from Save the Last Dance was like, "Oh, my bad, bro." And they put the cup down and walked out.
What did you say that?
I forgot.
Oh, no, it was in reference to like, how much that happens in corporate America where someone else comes in and you start looking at them like, oh, they trying to take my spot.
Oh yeah, definitely. You definitely don't want people in those type of positions. They don't want their token spot to be taken. So you got to get closer to the boss. I hate using that word. We say it all the time. But no, I can tell you guys this. After being a part of this conversation and listening to y'all perspectives, I will never watch this movie the same again. Not that it's definitely not ruined, but not ruined. Like it's impossible for it to be ruined. But because the thing is, even the stuff that I didn't think about, as soon as you guys brought it up, me knowing the movie the way I do, I'm like, damn, that's exactly what it did happen. Mm-hmm. But I think the writers and the director, they were intentional in a lot of this. So I kind of got to give them.
I agree with that.
Writing something that smart back then that still right now is the type of stuff that's going on. I was watching the director in an interview recently, and he was talking about how, especially in the white community, a lot of people missed the moral of the story. people come up to him to this day like, yeah, because of trading places, that's why I wanted to become a trader and this and that. And he's like, yeah, that's what's up. But, you know, that wasn't the point of the movie. That's not
the whole point.
Right. Yeah, that's not really what you were supposed to take out of it. So, you know, just to listen to him talk, and then listening to this conversation, it lets me know that everything they did in there was intentional. And
yeah, but you know, it's funny, right? That's like Scarface, right? Everybody want to be, but y'all remember the end of the movie? Y'all all trying to be Scarface.
Bomb going.
Sprayed up.
People take from media or art, whatever it is they want to take from it, right? They ignore what the artist who created it, what they're actually trying to say. Because another thing, last thing I'm gonna say about it is that the classism in the movie to me is absolutely crazy, right? So you got the racism, but the classism is the way they're treating each other, man. It's absolutely insane watching it like within that film. Even when the dude is in the end trying to trade for him, he's like passed out. Or like another part is a show about how ruthless the Duke brothers were. When his brother was having a heart attack, he said, "Man, fuck him." Yeah. Like, remember that part at the very end?
Yeah, like get our money back. Like, what are you talking about? Let him die. Like, I don't care about him and shit. A Duke is sat on this board. Oh right, yeah, so my last be rated board. Like, yo, a Duke is sat. We are this stock market. Right. I was berating the shit out of him. Like, yo, like what the fuck is wrong with you?
As if that was gonna get his money back.
I remember as a kid, right? I remember being younger, like laughing when they were on the train. That whole like, you know, Inga from Sweden. Right. And I remember watching it this time, and I'm like, hold up, my man came in with the blackface, talk about like, you know, Haile Selassie. I'm like, hold up,
yeah,
that's foul. That made a joke. That made a joke before we came on. He was like, wait till someone gonna grab that in 2020 and try to cancel him, because that's what we do. We cancel people from 20 years ago. So that'll eventually make his way out there. Maybe somebody watching this will make the meme.
I say people are gonna watch this.
I know that. I can already say that.
Gonna get on Twitter and cancel Dan Aykroyd.
I remember. But to your point, though, I think this is what makes this an excellent film, is because there are so many layers to it, and there's still the comedy piece to it too. Like the movie's just not as simple as, hey, like, you know, he got in his shoes and then this happened. There's so many layers to this movie, which was like makes it a smart movie. And I'm gonna let you brothers. I'm gonna give you the floor. I just want to say one last thing that I thought about in watching this. I was thinking about how like scorching hot Eddie Murphy was back then in terms of his standing, and I started thinking about the fact that, man, what if Eddie owned all stuff?
I know.
What if Eddie owned all his content? What if Eddie owned Trading Places in you know, Beverly Hills Cop, or his whole catalog? What would that look like? Now, granted, back then those conversations probably weren't being had, but you know, now you see Tyler Perry kind of doing that. But what if Eddie has enough content to have his own streaming service? Like, and I was thinking about that watching this movie in terms of, you know, we talk about building our own. What if Eddie owned all his content with some of the great like bodies of work that he's put out there? That would be absolutely insane. I would. Corey, I know you want to comment on this one. Real quick.
I would subscribe to an Eddie Murphy channel. I would. It's all Eddie Murphy.
Dev, I ain't gotta ask you, Dev. I know you give Eddie $19.99 right now.
I would run it for. I would run the channel.
Jonathan he said the Fed is the Duke brothers right now, buying junk bonds to make up for the losses. You got any thoughts on that, Corey?
I mean, you know, I have a thought about it that I don't really want to say out loud because I don't want to die by the hands of the you know, the cabals that run, you know, the shit that's out there. So, but what I will say about that is he not lying. Well, so the Fed is there are forces that control markets that don't have anything to do with the actual markets. Like right now, the market's supposed to be at 1929 levels, and boy just printed money. So the boy Jerome Powell was like, "Yo, yeah, we're not going back to 1929. We just not doing it." And I'm going to hand you a $20 trillion.
That's exactly why. That's why the argument about capitalism is funny, because we really don't have natural capitalism. We don't have
capitalism at all. I don't know what the hell this is, but it ain't capitalism.
This is something. This is some ad hoc stuff. We really don't have capitalism, because if we did, that wouldn't happen.
That's why I don't get mad when people call me a capitalist, because they don't understand that we're not living under a system of capitalism. I don't know what the hell this is, but this ain't capitalism.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't,
funny.
I don't know what to call
I'm
this
actually reading
shit.
a book now called I'm reading a book now called Capitalist Nigger. I'm pretty sure you read that, Kill. You read that before?
Nah, I never even heard of that. Who's the author of that?
Yeah.
I need to get
I'm
down with
gonna pull it up now. It's called Capitalist Nigger. It's a older book, but it's interesting because he talks about nation building as well, but how we should be focused on like building our own infrastructure. We never like so. The author's name is Chika Onyani. But it's called Capitalist Nigger. Look that up. But anyway, that's interesting too. Um, I know I said last thing before because I want you guys to like give you guys the floor so you can finish out your last thoughts about the movie. But remember the guy was at the dinner with him and he was telling a terrible joke about escargot.
Escargot, yeah.
And
Escargot.
yeah, he turned out to be the guy that was running the exchange, and he was laughing with him, having dinner with him, breaking bread. They were best of friends. Soon as they lost their bread, he was like, "Yo, take their seats, repossess their crib, take everything in their name, take everything under the company name." I'm like, "Yo, he was just breaking bread with him the night before. Like they was the best of friends."
Mm-hmm.
That was vicious too. And it shows you like in that game right there, man, it ain't no such thing as like So, with that being said, though, gentlemen, I want you guys to give you guys the floor to like finish out with your final thoughts on this movie. Core, I'm gonna start with you. Unmute yourself and give me your final thoughts on what you think about the film.
I mean, to be honest, it's a good study in racism and classism. Like I said at the very beginning, before internet Jesus came and wiped me out. It's not really as funny to me anymore as an adult as it was as a kid, because as a kid, I was knee buckling crying at a lot of these parts, and now it's still a little bit funny, but knowing how true it feels like a documentary now more than a comedy, right? So it's really weird, you know what I mean, that it feels that way. So I still love the movie, but I don't watch it as a comedy anymore. I watch it more like a docu-pic, you know what I mean, about racism and classism in America.
Got you. So, Kill, what are your final thoughts on the film?
Final thoughts, I guess, we can look at the movie in the context of, what goes on today and what's been going on for a while in terms of how do we engage and interact with, white liberals and white conservatives. And then the scene, I also think about the scene. I want to close out talking about the scene from when they bailed Eddie Murphy or Billy Ray Valentine out of jail. And then he got into the car, and then Mortimer or Randolph, one of them was like, we run a private program that rehabilitates culturally disadvantaged people, right? So, and again, and he says we want to help you, right? So again, this happens to us all the time. It happens to our children all the time with after-school programs, summer programs, the schools our children go to, a lot of the schools that we went to. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that maybe we shouldn't necessarily take advantage of those things, but the question is about the end game. Like, what do we do when we have those experiences? You know what I'm saying? When the white liberals come and say, we want to help you, right? And then even when they kind of like, even if they're not explicit about it, but they're kind of saying like, you're culturally disadvantaged. The first question should be, because this is about power, because power is about definition, right? Whose culture are you talking about? I might be disadvantaged in terms of your culture, but why does your culture have to be the end all be all? Like kind of like when people say classical music. What is classical music? You're saying it's European concert music. Black people could say, jazz is our own classical music, right? But if we just accept terms like classical music as like, okay, that's that type of music is classical music. You know what I'm saying? That's why I love the scene, classic scene. Let me switch gears. The classic scene from that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode when Will was like, yo, Jazz, kick it up a minute. Jazz go over to the joint and start scratching it. And Uncle Phil was like, listen to the oboes and all that. You know what I mean? That's like the first time they ever threw Jazz out the crib, right? But again, we got to ask these questions like, whose culture are we talking about? And what does it mean to be culturally disadvantaged? Like based on like who's asking the question? Because power is the ability to define reality and then have other people accept it as their reality. So they exposed a lot of stuff in this movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, but again, we got to ask ourselves, you know, be very careful when the white liberals come up to us saying we want to help you. Like, we got to give them the side eye. We got to teach our children to give them the side eye too, and be like, really, you want to help me? All right.
That's a great point, man. That reminds me of our conversation earlier about HBCUs. I'm gonna put a comment up before I do. Dev, what are your thoughts? Final thoughts on this film? Hopefully, we didn't ruin it completely for you, but what are your final thoughts?
Nah, it's not ruined at all. Like I said earlier, watching it as an adult, especially when I'm watching it in a serious mood, and then more so after being a part of this conversation, I can appreciate the movie more. Actually, it's a way smarter movie than I think anybody, and including myself, have ever given it credit for being. The themes in the movie are American as apple pie. Those are themes that were there way before 1983, themes that were there in the 80s, themes that are still here now, and for the foreseeable future, the United States of America is still going to be the same place. So I definitely appreciate it more. I was thinking more also bringing it to the real life people, that point that you made, Jim, about Eddie Murphy and owning things. It was funny because this was his kind of springboard, because Trading Places was actually only the second movie. John Landis got him to be in it. He wasn't even his first choice. I don't know if y'all know, this was supposed to be Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder again. And they didn't even want what's her name, Jamie Lee Curtis, because they thought she was already typecast as a horror movie chick, and it kind of worked out for everybody. But later on in his career, by the time he did Coming to America, he was hiring the director, John Landis, because his last few movies had bombed. So you could see the flip and power in this situation. And that's some of the themes that we touched on while we were talking about the movie.
Damn, I didn't even know that. I didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah, it's a lot of background stuff that I found out when I was looking.
I told y'all Eddie Murphy stand. But
I appreciate
Monica says that
this was a great conversation.
Yeah, it definitely was. Monica says we give their culture, schools, and other institutions power, which is true. You know, you listen. You come into the hood and tell somebody, "Yo, I got accepted into put your name of whatever Ivy League school is there," and you know they're gonna flip and do things like that because we actually give some of their institutions power. Jonathan said, "What platform did we watch? You know, he can't find it. It used to be on Netflix at one point. They took it off streaming service. But this is one of them things where." Yeah, I got the MP4. And Jonathan, like, I'll holler at you offline. We'll talk about that. But if you know, you know.
Yeah,
but
took it off Netflix.
With that being said, man.
Hey, Jim, can I get my unpopular opinion? I don't know how unpopular it's going to be among the four of us, but I got a whole analysis behind this too. So my unpopular opinion is that I believe that Trading Places is actually funnier than Coming to America.
Oh, that's Jimmy's opinion too.
And I think
that's my opinion too.
Argue that.
Funny, and I'm gonna say this. I think that a lot of times, like, so there are jokes in Trading Places that if you edit them, so when we watch Trading Places on USA or whatever, one of them other stations, when you take the profanity out, it kills the joke. But yet you can take the profanity out of some of the jokes and Coming to America, and it don't kill the joke. So I think that, like, for example, I don't know that Coming to America has a lot of funny scenes, but Coming to America don't have like a jail scene from Trading Places. You know what I'm saying? Which is like, you know,
no, it definitely don't.
The difference
and the crazy part about that is,
I mean, they both have a ton of quotables, but that might be the reason Coming to America might be more popular amongst the masses, just because of the quotables in it.
Yeah.
And to me, Trading Places is, like I said, I started this off by saying it's my favorite Eddie Murphy movie. Like, you know, a lot of people will say Coming to America, that's the popular choice. To me, Trading Places, like, it's just because I didn't know, like, even just like Dev, listening to some of the thoughts that Corey and Kill had, and also what Dev said, I'm taking new things from this as well, which is why I like having this platform and talk about movies about money, because you always get a different perspective. We didn't really get into some of the money stuff that was going on there because some of the trading that were going on, and it goes to Kill's point about this whole insider trading thing. And the one thing I'll say about the money situation is, how are you doing insider trading, right? And you straight writing my man checks, You writing checks to a dude
on the book.
like on the you putting on the books. I'm sitting there like, huh? Like, that makes no sense. Anyway, to me, this is his best film.
How easy it was for him to assimilate into that culture and into what he had to do on the job, because he's the one that noticed that.
Yeah,
job for like
he picked up on it right away.
Both of them noticed.
Yeah, Winthrop
at the beginning.
Winthrop noticed it too.
Because that's how they started talking. Like, yeah, it was this Beaks guy.
He got Winthrop off of it. Like, yo, so what's up with our niece? Like, when you gonna make her an honest one? He just changed the whole topic because he was trying to ask him about Beaks. But my man is writing checks doing insider trading, which is absolutely nuts. So yeah. So real quick though, Core, what's your favorite Eddie Murphy film?
Harlem Nights.
How about you, Kill?
2 weeks ago.
I don't know. I can't. It might. That's a difficult question. There's so many. I mean, I could say Harlem Nights. I could say it's got to be. It's going to be between Harlem Nights, Trading Places, and Coming to America. But I might throw like the first 48 hours.
He took the safe answer. Gave me 3 of them.
Yeah, I might throw the first those copies. I can't really.
Those are my favorite 2 characters.
I got
Billy Ray Valentine and Axel.
You ain't gotta ask me that question. All of them.
All of them. I knew you had all of them, right? Yeah. So, man, listen, for everybody watching this out there, man, we appreciate you kicking it with us. We appreciate those that left comments. Those that sent me text messages. You could have just came on Facebook and you left a comment. But we appreciate all the love and all the support. Kill, how can people get in touch with you if they have any questions about math? Because I know that what you're doing out there is touching the kids and helping them with their math, and you're doing it now online, so you can help people all over the country. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the Instagram is listed next to my name. It's at All This Math, all one word, All This Math. On Facebook, you can reach me by my name. My full name is my Facebook account is Akil Parker, and email allthismath@gmail.com. So those are probably the 3 main ways to contact me in terms of that. And we can have some conversations about how we can help the youth, and not just youth but adults. Anybody that needs assistance with mathematics. I'm trying to bring.
Are you still doing this thing where you take? Are you still taking people's questions and then like doing them live on like IG live or like whatever? Maybe I know you were doing it at one point. You still doing that?
I slowed down from it. I haven't really got too many requests, but with the summertime, and I'm in the process of trying to schedule and brainstorm about having some like some online math boot camps throughout the summer. So I'm still in the planning stage for that. So stay on the lookout for that.
All right, no doubt. If anybody got anything about looking for any math help out there, please reach out to Kill Dev. The head honcho behind our War Room Sports platform. How can the people get in touch with you?
First, I want to give a shout out to Mecca Made for the shirt. # We All We Got, because that's definitely the truth.
Yes, sir.
You can hit me at War Room Sports, Twitter, Instagram, the hub, warroomsports.com. Click on the contact us if you want to get at me about anything.
Absolutely, man. And shout out to Ruby. We appreciate all the love because she always shows us love too. And we all we got is absolutely true. Ain't nobody coming to save us. We gotta save ourselves. For my boy and I, man, we buy the hood everywhere. Hit us up, share this video, and if you have any movies that you want us to break down, because as you see, we take deep dives with movies. That's why we always bring Brother Kill on, because he always brings a perspective that I never thought about. So make sure you send us what movie requests we have. We already got a bunch of them. It's movies I've never heard of before. Like I got one right here, and I'm like, hold up, what is this? They said it's a movie about stocks or what have you. And shout out to Jalil, who's in By the Hood University, because he sent it to me, and I was like, dude, I never even heard of this joint. It's called The Hummingbird Project. You ever heard of that?
Nah.
I seen it on Netflix.
It's about high frequency.
I heard of it.
It's about high frequency trading. It's called The Hummingbird Project. So I'm gonna take a look at that. But anyway, shout out to everybody who sends us movies. Send us some more. And we appreciate the support. Stay in tune live again to talk about another movie sometime soon, and I appreciate our support. So check out our podcast dropping tomorrow. We got a podcast gentleman in Philadelphia, full-time employee, owns multiple rental properties, also has a car business, and this boy is like 24, 25 years old.
25.
So
25.
Make sure you check that out. It's 25 is a pretty powerful episode. This dude's 25 years old and already doing his thing. That'll be on our podcast. Go to everything, for By the Hood right here on Facebook. You'll see it. So we appreciate the support. Take it easy, y'all. Peace.
Peace.